All right, happy to have you along on this Sunday morning. It's our Sunday morning public access programming on our 5 Hawaii Media Oahu radio stations and our 5 Hawaii Media radio stations on the island of Kauai on Johnny Miro. And once again, we're going to be discussing an important topic for people, and it'll center around housing and the ease with which to get your permits. All right, why is it so difficult? Yeah, you ever had a problem with a building permit? Permitting is one of Hawaii's most consistent headaches. A new report, though, from Grassroots Institute of Hawaii is suggesting that there's ways that state and county lawmakers can speed up the permitting approvals. And with me this morning to discuss that and bring forth his knowledge of this is Joe Kent, Grassroots Executive Vice President, to discuss this. Good Sunday morning to you, Joe. Thanks for joining in.
Good morning, and thanks for having me.
Yeah, Joe, why did Grassroots decide to write this report?
Well, we've been getting so many stories of people who follow us. You know, they email us their stories of pain and regulatory heartache, and it just seemed that more and more of those stories led back to one department, the permitting department on all 4 of the counties. And you know, permitting is connected to so many problems in Hawaii, like housing and opening a business, if you need to remodel something. A lot of people have unpermitted structures in their backyard or something. I mean, this all affects the affordability of Hawaii and the cost of living. And so we wanted to address this. I mean, Hawaii has among the slowest wait times for permitting in the nation. So we're the worst state for permitting, and it takes 6 months to a year, sometimes longer, to get a permit. So this is top on our list of things to address.
Okay, so what are the main causes of permitting delays in Hawaii? And Joe, how do they impact housing availability and affordability? And I know you folks had some recommendations. You've been visiting the neighbor islands, but what are the main causes of these permitting delays here?
Well, a lot of it goes back to zoning and the multi-regulatory system that you have to get stamps and approvals from. Sometimes you need to go to this department and that department, and all of that is really confusing for people. I remember trying to look up how to get a split AC permit for a condominium, and I was on the department's website for an hour, just clicking around, trying to find just how to even get started, you know. And I'm, used to navigating government websites. So if I can't do it, how is the average person going to do it? So there's just a lot of bureaucratic morass that's built up. But also, there's some policies that make it slower too. And that's what we wanted to address with our report. Small tweaks and actually big tweaks, 7 big tweaks, basically, to make permitting faster.
Mm-hmm. So you mentioned bureaucratic morass. So in your opinion, bureaucratic the culture is pretty much contributing to the complexity and delays to this permitting process?
Well, that's part of it, is the culture. But from from the bureaucrats' perspective, they have to follow the law. And so although if you talk to people who run the departments, they want the permitting to go faster, but they have to follow the law and follow exactly, if someone submitted their permit incorrectly, if there's a gray area somewhere, if something wasn't filled out, it all has to go back to the customer and the user, and so even permitting departments themselves, I would say, are frustrated at the slowness.
Before we get to some of the recommendations Grassroots made, the technology, we heard stories about that, the DPP, the outdated technology, the understaffing in the building departments. Is that worse than the permitting delays?
Well, technology is a double-edged sword. A lot of people say that technology can be our savior. If we only upgrade the computers, then that's going to speed everything up. But sometimes it slows things down. I know on the Big Island, they implemented the EPIC system, which is a computer system to put all of the permits online so everyone could see them. But that the implementation of that slowed the permits for months. And actually, it's led to even more problems, as we'll see. But, and because the fundamental difference is that computers can only see things in zeros and ones. It's either yes or no. But humans can have a little bit of flexibility, and sometimes that actually makes it quicker. So, so that's a double-edged sword.
Joe Kent, Grassroot Executive Vice President, joining me to discuss ways to speed up the permitting process. So what were some of Grassroot's recommendations that it made at some recent events that they hosted?
Yeah, well, the first one is pre-approved plans. So you should be able to just walk into the permitting office and take a permit plan off the shelf and build your home very easily. It's already approved. It's pre-approved. And actually, Hawaii County is the leader in this. They already have this, and they're expanding it to multifamily homes as well. They have it for single-family homes. And there are a lot of people who were praising this when we went to Hawaii County because it's just so simple and easy and quick. Now, if one county did it, why not the rest of them? It seems very simple. Another one is exempting basic home repairs or business repairs. Right now, all counties have this where they say, okay, if you're trying to replace something or repair something that's small cost, let's say it's $1,000 or something, you can get it permitted, or it's exempt from needing a permit. So that's a good thing. But the cap is too low. The cap is $7,000 on some counties, $15,000 on other counties. I think the Big Island is wanting to make it $25,000, which would be great. But I mean, the higher the better, because the more things we can exempt, the quicker this is going to go. And permits should be really addressing the big things, not these little home repairs like countertops, or even if business owners, if they want to open a business, sometimes they get slowed down significantly just by trying to upgrade the internals of the building.
So when you mentioned the 7,000, Joe, when you mentioned the 7,025, that's on the cost of the remodeling project.
Right. So if something was to be remodeled in your home that's less than $25,000, then you could do that without a permit. Okay. So that's what the exemption speaks to. Okay. And the easier we make that for people, then the easier we're going to get through the permitting department. Also, Solar APP Plus, this is a process that they use on the mainland to permit solar applications in a day. And in Hawaii, it takes months to permit solar. And if you look at all of the permits, most of them, or many of them, are solar. The bulk of all of the permits caught up in the queue at in the permitting departments across the counties are PV, solar voltaic related. And so if we could make that faster, that could not only quicken solar, but it would clear out the backlog for everyone else too. There was actually a bill to do this last year, or this year, excuse me, but it died at the state legislature. But some people are talking about doing it again, and maybe we just need to educate lawmakers a little more about how this could quicken the process. So another one is grandfathering. I mean, how many people do I know that have a unpermitted structure somewhere in their house or in the backyard? Maybe it's a little shed or a shack, or maybe it's like a portion of the house that's not permitted. So what does the person have to do? They have to go through a process to try to get it permitted, and that can cost double or triple what it normally costs. But we should be making it easier to get these things permitted, not harder. And in other states, they've had amnesty programs to make it easier. All you need is a simple inspection. If it passes an inspector, then it's permitted, type of thing. That's just a few of the ways, and you can find more about our report at grassrootinstitute.org.
All right, Joe, any takeaways that you can relate to the audience after you hosted a couple of events Grassroot did, about the report? What were the takeaways from those after as you hosted a couple of events recently?
Yeah. So we talked in Honolulu and on the Big Island, and the biggest takeaway for me was that people actually wanted to go to a permitting event, which it was a sold-out crowd. It was standing room only,
really?
and only in Hawaii would you ever have a big crowd who wanted to learn about permitting. And there were a lot of government bureaucrats or former government bureaucrats who came to our events, and they agreed with us with our recommendations. Many of them were like, yeah, this makes sense. We would love to implement this. All we need is a law change. For example, one former bureaucrat said that he tried to get private contracting, where you could have the permitting department just hire a private company to clear out the backlog. And then when the backlog is cleared, then the private company goes away and the civil service workers remain. And that would be a really simple way to do it. But it turns out politically it's really difficult because of Hawaii's crazy regulations. So the big takeaway for me is there's a lot of response and want for this, not only of people who want to get their permits approved, but also of the people who are approving the permits. And everybody wants this.
All right, then, not only just them, but how about some stories from some of the people who attended? Some personal stories that they relayed to you?
Oh, sure, yeah. Well, there were a lot of stories about business owners who had delays. And for a business, those delays cost money. Time is money. And so we've heard, there was one business story where it was 2 months delayed and cost the business $10,000 because they couldn't generate power to run their business. Another lady was trying to open up a sort of a postal delivery business, and it was taking months and months and months to get a permit for her. On the Big Island, a lot of people talked about the need to get unpermitted structures permitted. Big Island is big. There's a lot of land out there, and there's a lot of unpermitted structures. And so there's a need for that. I've heard this many times, too, where a restaurant owner will try to get a permit, and it takes sometimes years to do this. There was one restaurant owner I heard of who went to the permitting office and was running up and down the halls yelling for help because he needed someone to address his permit. Otherwise, he was at the breaking point of taking a huge loss on the business. He'd waited over a year. So permitting is personal. And, one major theme was that all of these people were terrified about speaking out because they didn't want any problems with their permit, lest the department, retaliate somehow because they told their story. So there's a culture of fear around this permitting issue, and people were thankful that we were saying, well, we don't need a permit, so it's easy for us to speak out.
Well, that sure is unfortunate that people would be holding back for fear of retaliation for speaking out. But you heard it firsthand. Joe Kent, the Executive Vice President of Grassroot Institute of Hawaii, grassrootinstitute.org, grassrootinstitute.org for more on this. Their president, Grassroot President Keli'i Akina, a few weeks ago, I read this. He wrote about a story from the Big Island where someone was being told to tear down their structure. And that was because of an invalid permit. Can you explain what happened there?
Yeah, I talked to Shahzad Osman on the Big Island. He's a small business owner who moved to a small home near Captain Cook on the Big Island, and he wanted to move his family there. He came from the island of Mauritius, and he told me that Mauritius is just like Hawaii. It looks the climate, everything, it just reminded him of home. So that's why he wanted to move here. And so the home he bought was needed some upgrades, and so he started upgrading the home, getting permits for that. But one day he got a call from the permitting office, and they told him his permit was expired. Apparently, they have this. Excuse me, it was expired the previous day, and so. And it's because they have this new computer system, like I alluded to before, called Epic, that canceled the original permit on the house from the 1980s.
Yep.
I guess the system, the permit was in some sort of gray area where it might not have gotten a final inspection at the time, or if it did, it wasn't recorded anywhere. This is back in the 1980s. And because of that, the computer robotically just canceled it, and the permitting office said, "But don't worry, all you have to do is just tear down the house and build it again."
Yeah.
But Shahzad said it's impossible to do that because since the 1980s, the zoning laws have changed such that it's much more difficult to get a structure like that permitted in the location, which is near the shoreline. And so for Shahzad, he's just stuck, and he hired a lawyer. He's pursuing this as a case, but it's not just Shahzad, though. There are thousands and thousands of other people on the Big Island who are in this position as well, who aren't speaking out, who haven't hired a lawyer, and who are watching Shahzad's case, hoping that it somehow helps their case too. So this is a big problem.
Joe, has he said that it's taking long for that process to move forward, or is it moving at a pretty good pace? Did he mention that?
No, it's taking long. I mean, already this has taken at least 6 months. And he went to the Board of Appeals on the Big Island. The Board of Appeals, I believe, agreed with the computer, and so yeah, it's just taking a long time now.
Okay, couple more questions.
And this problem is likely going to happen on other islands that have instituted computer systems like Epic. On Maui they have the MAPS system. In Honolulu they have their own computer system, and some of the bureaucrats have told me that this is not a problem with Epic. This is a problem with computers. So we may see more of this.
Wow. It's amazing. And the DPP was just in the news all of last year, upgrading their system. So what are we using over here?
Oh, well, we're using a system. I don't remember the name of it, but these systems have an upside of being able to see everything. I can see every single permit in the system. I can see where the problems are, where it's stuck. I can see what kind of permit it is. And so we're able to get all kinds of data on this. That's how we're able to say, the permits are taking 6 months to a year and so on. But anyways, we'll have to watch this closely to see if they find some resolution on the Big Island that hopefully can work for the other islands too.
It sounds like you've got a really good response, obviously, by the attendants, and then at the recent events, and people just going to grassrootinstitute.org to read it. Is there any hope, Joe, of these recommendations being adopted by the state or by the counties?
Yeah, there's a lot of traction right now in permitting. The departments, the politicians are looking at this. Their constituents are obviously squawking about this. And there's a need to reform permits because we're trying to build housing. This is one of the biggest roadblocks to that. last year at the Hawaii State Legislature, there was an accessory dwelling unit bill that passed that allows more ADUs in people's backyards, and but we're going to need permitting reform for that to happen. Big Island actually saw that and addressed it by passing Bill 123, and that helped. But all of the counties need to do that to quicken the permitting process for ADUs. So, so there's going to be challenges ahead, but at least we're hearing a lot of people talk about it, and the department in Honolulu actually responded to our event, saying that they are either in the process of implementing or have implemented many of the things that we're talking about in our report. But I think the question is the magnitude. One solution in our report, or policy option in our report, is to have a shot clock, for example.
Yeah.
You put a shot clock on it. If it takes too long, then the permit's automatically approved. But in Honolulu, the shot clocks are easy to reset. All you do is hit the reset button, and the shot clock goes to zero again. So we need to make our shot clocks a little harder to reset.
What are you looking at right now for a shot clock neighbor islands? Is that a 3 month, 6 month, 1 year?
Yeah, I think the shot clocks are around a month or so, on the neighbor islands. It depends on the project. I know in Lahaina, for example, they have a shot clock that's less than a month. And but in Lahaina, it's taken longer than a month for each of these things. Now, so the shot clocks are all kind of like a guide, I guess, but they should have more teeth, I think. Okay, and with these permits, there's obviously a cost to it. Is there a difference in the fees that are applied? Because wouldn't there be a positive effect as far as reducing the building permit fees for the overall construction costs and housing affordability within the state? Well, yeah. So when it comes to fees, permitting fees have gone up faster than the rate of inflation over time. And so we're actually paying more and more for permitting fees. And so the departments should have plenty of money to do their work. But, you know, that's actually a good suggestion, is that we should reduce some of these fees. I mean, this is thousands and thousands of dollars that people have to pay. And like I said before, if they're trying to get something that was unpermitted, permitted, sometimes the fees are double or triple. So yeah, counties should really look at reducing those fees if they want more people to get through. And what do you think, Joe, which types of construction projects would benefit most from the proposed policy reforms you're recommending? Are there many in your mind? Well, that's the great thing, is that these reforms don't just affect one sector. It's just the whole thing, from healthcare to businesses to nonprofits or housing, especially. This is huge. I mean, look at, for example, our energy goals in Hawaii. Now, whatever you think of those energy goals, permitting is a big barrier to them. And so if people want to get solar, then we need to make that quicker for them and less expensive. So yeah, this, I think, is the one issue that affects them all. Executive Vice President Joe Kent of Grassroots Institute of Hawaii. Anything else you'd like to share with the listeners, Joe, as we get set to wrap things up? Yes, I think it's really important to tell stories about permitting. If people who are listening have stories about their struggles or maybe their ease in getting through the permitting process, we'd really love to know them. And you can share those stories with us at grassrootsinstitute.org. Just click on Contact Us, grassrootsinstitute.org. All right, great job, Joe, and look forward to another discussion about a very important topic here within the state.
And until then, enjoy the rest of your Sunday.
Okay, great. Thank you so much.